Well, the thing about jazz and what makes jazz so cool in your songs or any kind of music that you play, not only jazz but in pop music, what makes jazz chords so interesting is that they add a new flair to any normal major chord. So if I want to play an A in A major, I can do this. That's fine. But to make it a little bit spicier, you do one of these. You get some of that action in there. Or on a G, get that jazz chord. Versus just a normal C or G. It adds to the flair, it adds to the dimension of the song to get a smoother feel as well as a more interesting rhythm section, which is really what makes songs interesting. Somebody who does this really well, and what got me into this, is John Mayer, and his acoustic stuff especially, is that he will incorporate jazz chords, but he'll make them into pop songs. He'll use chords like these and this. But you wouldn't even know it when you're first listening to it. It doesn't sound like jazz, but it makes the song interesting. And that's what's good about jazz chords. Rock and roll has a wide variety of applications. You can have kind of more classic rock back in the oldies with Elvis and that sort of thing, which is very blues driven. But you also have alternative type rock like U2 and those types of bands. Coldplay is used to be in that more thing. They moved into more alternative pop music. But these types of ambient things all fall into the category of rock and roll. I have no idea what that means. Another genre that is particularly dear to my heart is blues, and it's the first thing that I started playing when I picked up an electric guitar over 11 years ago. And what's so cool about it is it's something that, first of all, was the roots and kind of the backbone of rock and roll music from the very beginning. But it's also been incorporated into just about every other type of music, and you can sometimes not even notice that there are blues scales going on behind certain pop tunes. There are some fantastic guitar solos, fantastic guitar music done by even country singers, guys like Keith Urban. On the other hand, you have pop singers and blues singers like John Mayer. Jimi Hendrix was heavily influenced by the blues, and his incredible guitar playing was much of blues scales and variations thereof. What's really fun about it is the improvisation. You can do just about anything in any key with the blues, and you can just have a lot of fun with it. You just do stuff like this. Whatever, in any sort of key. So it's really cool. You can solo on it. You can have as much improvisation fun as you want with the blues, and it never gets old.
And I also think that apart from jazz, the most influential kind of guitar playing is rock and roll. My favorite, as growing up, my favorite guitar player was Angus Young for AC/DC. And the reason why I liked him, well, for one, really liked his style of guitar. It was heavy metal, but it was also blues too. But he was just so eccentric, and his showmanship was really, to me, out of all the guitarists I knew, to me was really the most special. But as time went on, I started listening to guys like, of course, the greats, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page. Just trying to think top of my head, but not just from those traditional kind of blues, that early stages of rock and roll guitar playing, but also moving into the experimental kind of guitar playing, and particularly my favorite band and really my favorite guitarist is The Edge. And basically, what he does with rock and roll is he's grounded in that rock and roll. He grew up in the '60s, so he's grounded in that era of guitar playing. But he's able to use effects pedals and things like that to really create his own unique sound. And that's what's really so special about a band like U2 is they do have their own sound, and that's really because of The Edge and his innovative touch on that music.
I think that, in my opinion, the greatest guitarists, I think, came to the forefront in the '60s. Certainly, Chuck Berry created a whole new generation of guitarists. Les Paul certainly contributed that in his design of the guitar, the electric guitar, or his contribution to the electric guitar. Certainly, the lion's share of attention goes to Jimi Hendrix. But I think that a lot of guitarists contributed to that environment that Jimi Hendrix was able to excel in. Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, and I'm talking pre-Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton. I think I said Eric Clapton, but they all had different styles, but they really pushed the instrument, in my opinion, to a point by which you went beyond just listening to a song in regards to its lyric, or even the complexion of the band as a whole. The guitar became the center point of it, and then of course as we left the 60s and went into the 70s, it created just a whole variety of guitar performances. I think probably one of the better guitarists that's understated is George Harrison. He was very particular in his in the way he played the guitar. He was limitless in his capacity to play it, but he believed that the guitar had an economy to it, and that it was a part of the bigger picture. And so you start seeing a sense of philosophy in how people played guitars in the 60s, and how that carried through in the 70s, whereas before it had a place. There wasn't an idea behind the guitar other than to be able to play it well, whether it was rhythm or lead, whatever the case may be. But as you get into the 60s and the latter part of the 60s, it became an entity in and of itself, and there was this philosophy about it that was infused by not just the people who played it, but the people who listened to it. A lot like how art changed in the 20th century, where before it had a practical purpose, but it sort of evolved into different movements. But when you get into the 20th century, there was this philosophy that paralleled the pictorial quality of paintings, and I think that you see that in guitar playing. And of course now it is such an icon, and it is such a category all unto itself that again, all that I think came about in the late 60s.